Welcome to Food Talk, the show from the East End about food, fishing, farming, and all things East End. And my guests today are Executive Chef Joe Realmuto from Honest Management Group, Nick&Toni's. Mark Smith, the co-owner of all these operations, that's Nick&Toni's Cafe in the City, Rowdy Hall, La Fondita, Town Line Barbecue.
And Honest Catering.
And Honest Catering, we can't forget that.
Absolutely.
How are you guys today?
Great.
Good. Thanks for coming on the show. This is the inaugural show. Joey, you're going to prepare something for us today. We'll get back to that later. But what are you going to?
We're keeping it simple. Things you could do at home. At your house. And really make it look really nice. And it's stuff we do in the restaurant. There's some beautiful tuna. We just kind of seared it off. Some baby zucchini, some greens, and just a little vinaigrette. Something so simple you can make at home. And
lovely. That's great.
Be a rock star.
So, what a lot of people associate, let's just talk about Nick&Toni's. A lot of people associate Nick&Toni's as the power restaurant. Hillary Clinton's been there, Bill Clinton, Colin Powell, Sarah Jessica Parker, Uma Thurman, you name it, they've been there. But what has always impressed me is two things stand out. One, that you guys had that wood-burning oven, which was installed in 1991, where entrees are being cooked in the oven, not just pizzas, but also this garden out back. So what's the acreage of that garden right now?
The garden's about a half acre, and it's
sizable.
Pretty. Yeah, it is. It is. It's actually, we have a full-time farmer now.
Yeah.
Jeff Negron from the Growing Seed.
Oh, that's great.
He's and it's been a game changer for us.
So you talk about farm to table. You guys really were one of the original restaurants to do farm to table. So has the earth's been turned over? You guys planted anything yet?
Yeah, actually we have.
Right in the middle of it.
Yeah, we have spring onions in there right now, some greens, and it's just, we're in the process. There's a lot of stuff in the Quail Hill greenhouse getting our seedlings going, so everything's going to go in within the next few weeks.
You do the seedlings at Quail Hill greenhouse.
Yep, and some stuff at Jeff's farm as well.
Right, and so what are some of the things that your customers would find on their plates this spring and then this summer?
Spring onions, lots of root vegetables, baby carrots, beets, all kinds of greens, tons of different peppers, eggplant, and a lot of things that we try to plant in there are specialty items, things that you can't, not the run-of-the-mill stuff. We're not trying to put zucchini in there because, number one,
we couldn't grow enough.
We use so much for our zucchini chips, we couldn't possibly.
So is it mostly for garnish, or is it?
No. It's stuff that goes on our menu, but it's, and a lot of specialty stuff, for, a garnish on a special, things that might only last a few days. If we have a larger
Got some nice raspberry bushes.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So
All
we try
kinds
to
of berries,
incorporate,
actually.
the
Rhubarb.
pastry into it. Yeah, rhubarb.
Nice.
So
Good.
So items we will actually let go on our menu and just reprint them as they go out. But
Let's talk about Uma Thurman. Were you there the night that? So there was a chef named Paul Del Favreau, who's the owner of Harbor Market over in Sag Harbor. This is a number of years ago, maybe mid to late 90s. Uma Thurman's in the restaurant. It's late. I guess her friend left. She needs a cab, can't get one, and take it from there. Do you know the rest of the story?
yeah, I'm sure you know better, actually. Plus, you tell a hell of a lot better story.
weren't you behind the bar that night?
I was behind the bar.
There you
that night.
go.
Right.
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember the entire. So all I remember is that they needed a cab and there was nothing available. So somebody went in the back and asked Paul, and Paul was just,
So that beat up old Volkswagen.
Yeah, and he really didn't even realize who she was.
Right.
I think. That was the funny
And then
part.
the next morning, it was like, you're not going to believe this.
Yeah.
Paulie gave Uma Thurman a ride home, right? Oh, I love that.
Do most people know that you started your career out here at Nick&Toni?
No, so let's just tell the viewers, thank you,
All
Smitty.
right.
So the deal is that I was bartending in the city. One of my I said, I just got married and we're thinking about making a move, maybe Princeton, New Jersey, maybe out to the Hamptons. Ralph Derby, who had done the drawings, maybe, or was the contractor for?
No, he was the contractor, I think, for the Mosaic.
Right, that's right. Yeah. So he was one of my bar customers. He says, well, if you ever want to go out to the Hamptons, my friends Jeff and Tony own Nick&Toni's, and I could I could introduce you to him. So I'm going, Nick&Toni, some spaghetti joint. What do I know? So I go, okay, you know. So he gave me Jeff's email. This is when email was first like, wow, you have email, you know? So I sent him an email. I don't hear a thing. And then I said something to Ralph and whatever. Then Jeff, like maybe called me or whatever. He came in, checked me out. I was working at a place called Rick Kell, which was Thomas Keller's and Serge Raoul's collaboration down on Varick Street. And then Jeff invited me out to, because they were looking for a bartender because that front room with the oven, with the bar, wasn't there. So they were looking for they had a real bar looking for a bartender. And he invited myself and my wife at the time, Ellie Watson, to come out and try the food. We came out on, I think it was May 1st. We ate. No, it was April 1st. We ate. We had a couple of weeks to make a decision. We said, what the heck? We had nothing really holding us. We were in Williamsburg at the time before Williamsburg was hip, you know? And I think we moved out on like May 7th, and the rest is history. And
Great.
so that's how I ended up out in the East End. Never looked back. It's an unbelievable story.
You were the first person, when I walked in the front door for my interview, you were the first person.
So it was a sleepy afternoon. I believe it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday, maybe a
It was
Thursday.
probably a Wednesday.
Probably a
because
Wednesday.
They were just setting the restaurant up.
Joey walks in. I think he had like a tie, like a bow tie. No, it wasn't a bow tie. And he says, "I'm here to see Mr. Del Favre." And you probably said, "Paul, I'm making this up," but you know, you were nervous. And you were a young guy. You had interned at the River Cafe with David Burke.
Yeah,
right.
And I remember actually it was John Logren at the time. David had just left, but I remember pulling into the front parking lot and looking at the place and saying, "I'm not working in this dump." what kind of restaurants? It looks like a house.
Right,
you know? I mean, coming from Queens, you know, look at houses as being restaurants. And I came in and, you know, I started talking to you, and Paul ran out in about 30 seconds time. He said, "Can I, you know, do you have a resume?" He grabbed it, threw it down. He said, "Okay, when can you start?" And I was just like, "I just drove 3 hours for that, you know." He says, "I got to set up the kitchen. I got to set up the kitchen." He turned around and went right back.
He didn't feed you. He didn't say anything.
Nothing.
But okay. But
I think you offered me some water.
Right.
27 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an unbelievable tale.
Yeah, long time.
I'm so glad to have been there from the start too.
Yeah, good stuff.
So you know, I've got this thing about explaining food to people. So I know that one of your ingredients is an emulsion. Tell me, what is an emulsion?
I mean, it's basically blended, and we use emulsion blenders, those little hand stick blenders, and it basically just kind of binds up all the proteins, the oil, and the vinegar, you know, and it makes a nice, almost a little bit of a creamy, you know, kind of vinaigrette, you know, and you could do that with a lot of things, mayonnaise or emulsions.
How important is how fast you pour the oil
Super
into
important.
an emulsion?
Yeah, super important. I mean, whenever you're making a vinaigrette or so, you always want to add it in nice and slow, even if you're doing it by hand, because that's when everything starts to bind and it comes together. Otherwise, it's going to break. You add your fat in, is the word, into anything, whether it's a hollandaise sauce, a mayonnaise, it's going to break. And the nice thing about an emulsion is, especially when you're doing vinaigrettes, is it really, really coats your greens or anything you're doing really well with it. You know, and you get an even flavor. You're not just getting oil and vinegar.
Okay.
You know,
So another question is, I was going to call it awful because some people think
it tastes
awful.
No, but like offal. So what's offal?
innards. You know,
Innards.
it's all the things.
Lung, heart,
liver, intestines, tripe.
yeah.
You know,
Poor
kidney.
people's food.
OFFAL.
Exactly.
So let's see what the Food Lover's Companion says, because this is what we use. Called offal in Great Britain. Variety meats are animal innards and extremities that can be used in cooking or in the production of foods such as sausage. I love sausage. The category includes brains, cheeks, both chaps, intestines, chitterlings, feet and ankles, pig's feet, heart, kidney, lungs, liver, marrow, bones, spleen, stomach, tail, testicles,
There you
pancreas,
go.
and tongue. All right.
Rocky Mountain.
You guys serve
You know what?
offal?
I'm a big fan of them.
Yeah.
You know, not all of them. There's certain ones that I won't even.
Because of the richness of the flavor?
No, you know, it's a textural thing for me, and I think that's what it is for most people. You know, a lot of offal also has, you know, a good word for it is a little bit of a stank. You know, when you're eating it,
Right.
you know, like an aged steak, you get that little
Like
bit
a
of stank.
tripe or
You know, so it has a little bit of that, which I don't necessarily mind, but a lot of it's textural. You know, tripe is chewy. You know, brains are, you know, really soft. You know.
Interestingly enough, though, I think the appeal of offal to today's diner is a lot different than to maybe the generation before. Because I know for my father, who grew up, is 87, I mean, my grandmother used to prepare lung and liver, you know, because they were cheap meats. You know, they were cheap selections for dinner, whereas I think today, the kids growing up, they're like, they'd be freaked of it, you know, because it's not a part of what they've ate growing up.
Right,
So.
good point. Because I remember liver was something
Yeah,
that was served,
absolutely.
you know, almost once a week.
Liver and onions. Ugh.
Right, right. And see, and I always liked liver and onions. I'm a liver and onion fan, but you
hear
got to go to a diner to get it. Even diners don't serve it anymore, you know? Cool.
That was easy.
Okay. so you guys, obviously, you're going to serve any? Well, what about foie gras? Is foie gras also?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
There you go.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
there you go, folks. The foie gras is really awful.
And we serve menudo over at La Fondita. You know,
Chicken livers, you know.
Chicken livers are on our menu at Nick&Toni's right now at the cafe in the city as well.
Let's just tell the viewers a little bit about the research that went into, let's say, Town Line, and how you
At
came
La
at that.
Fondita.
Both of them.
Good trip.
You know, they're great trips. And a great story is La Fondita. I remember Jeff, saying, "Let's open up a Mexican restaurant," and I'm like, "What the hell do I know about Mexican? I'm a kid from Queens. I know nothing about Mexican food." And he's like, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out." So we planned a trip to Mexico, and Mark and Jeff were in the front seat. And I still don't know. To this day, I still don't know how we got around.
It was unbelievable. We started in Veracruz, went through the Andes Mountain, not the Andes, the Sierra Madres in Mexico,
Oh my Lord.
all the way to Oaxaca. And there was some pretty funny stories during that trip. But I'll tell you something, we ate some great food.
We ate some really good food.
Drank some great mezcal, and
Was the idea to always do Mexican street food, or did that evolve out of the
Always.
trip?
No, it was always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to the, particularly in Oaxaca, in the big market there, and it's a huge market, they have in the back of these markets these women, local women that just set up like these little stalls.
Fondas.
Yeah,
That's where the name
That's
came
where it
from.
came
It's
from.
a little kitchen.
It's like a little kitchen
within the
and
market.
they just, moles or tacos or, I mean, everything. So we said, this is a great sort of thing that we could be great to bring back out east. And,
Oh, cool.
very,
It's a great concept.
Yeah, it was-
It's everybody's favorite.
very cool.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun food.
Oh, very. Yeah.
People's expectations. The nice thing about it for me is, people's expectations aren't just always up here. They go in there just to eat and enjoy, and it takes a little.
although
bit of
when we
pressure
did open, people didn't understand the concept
Oh, yeah.
of a real tortilla as
Right.
part of the taco. Everybody
There
was
was
like,
some
where's the,
educating.
where's the hard
Oh.
shells? Where's the
You
hard
know what?
queso
It
shells?
probably took us a good 6 or 7 years before people really figured.
You were a little
figured
ahead of the
Lafayette.
curve then. So this leads me to, because I know that I'm going to assume that some of the meat that's used, or maybe all the meat that's used at Fondita, but I know at Town Line that you guys made a commitment to natural meats.
Antibiotic, hormone-free. Just foods that we want to feed our families.
Right.
That's it. I think, philosophically at all the restaurants, it's about, we don't want to serve anything that we're not comfortable feeding to our families, like Joey says, whether it's dairy products, whether it's...
And that's true throughout all the concepts.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, all of our meat products, and and it was a difficult task. Actually finding the right purveyors and sourcing it, and actually trying to read through the labels, and who these people are. You think because it says all natural, it means nothing.
Right.
It really does mean nothing. We went through a couple of different pork producers, and finally we took a road trip up to Pennsylvania and
Went to the
actually
plant.
Went to the plant. We wanted to see.
Saw the whole process from when they come in to when
And
they
so,
go out.
and which product is this?
This is a Leidy's product.
Yeah.
They use all surrounding farms out there. And it's not just about it's about what they're it's when they're alive too, how they're handling their animals, what they're feeding it, whether they're abusive, how they're slaughtered, before they go into.
So on the Nick&Toni's menu, and to an extent the Rowdy Hall menu, you are sourcing local ingredients.
We try our
lot,
hardest.
right?
Yeah.
Balsam Farms. Who else?
Balsam, Quail Hill,
Amber
Amber
Waves.
Waves,
Frank. Broomy Farms.
Yeah, Boomy Farms. He's now actually
And who's
getting bigger.
who's the gal up in the North Fork that does all the greens? Drawing a blank. Francois Payard's.
Satter Farms.
Satter Farms,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I mean, and her stuff is really nice. I mean, they're huge now.
I see their stuff
They're
on menus in the
yeah,
city.
Yeah, no, they're really, really big. Yeah, so I mean, we do whatever we can as much as we can.
Well, the nice thing is also, I mean, you know, years ago there wasn't a lot of people, there wasn't a lot of growers.
Right.
You know, and actually Satter Farms was probably one of the first.
Yes, they were. Right.
And then now you got guys like Alex and Eden and the girls over at Amber Waves, and Carissa's making bread with locally grown wheat.
Sea salts. And
So, you know, the whole movement it's sort of helped us.
Right.
Because now there's actually people that we could source from locally.
Right.
You know, obviously other than Art Ludlow, there's nobody raising livestock and things like that, so it's a little hard on that end,
But it's very difficult. Even that stuff is very difficult. You know, I mean, Ian and Alex they're great farmers, and they're also very smart business people. But you know, not all farmers are good business people, just like with any trade. You know, so trying to get their product list from them, trying to find out availability, how much they actually have. You could place orders with some farmers, and they'll call you up the next day and say, oh, you know, we don't have it. The night before, we were planning out what our specials for the next day were going to be, you know, and then getting invoices on, you know, the back of a piece of paper that they found in their car, you know. So it's, you know, it's a challenge, but it's getting better and better.
Well, we got about 10 minutes left. Joey, why don't you slice and dice for us? And,
Well, I mean, it's, like I said, we just took a really beautiful piece of, you know, tuna. You could have your fishmonger cut it up for you, nice long strips, and we just kind of sear the outside so that it's still pretty rare in the middle, you know, just for a little bit of flavor. You know, and like I said, this is stuff you could actually do in your house, you know, because you're buying the tuna already cut, you're searing it off, and then you're just kind of assembling.
And what kind of
Yeah.
tuna is it? Is it from the Atlantic, Pacific?
This is Atlantic tuna, yeah. You know, and the seasons, you know, the fish season is actually just starting, you know, and, you know, you could do whatever you want at home. I mean, we have some, you know, baby zucchini, you know, you could do this as an appetizer, as, you know, a small entree, you know, for people that are just trying to be, you know, careful about what they eat. You know?
Look at that.
I mean, it's super, super simple and easy, you know, some beautiful greens.
What kind of greens
from
are
the
these?
North Fork. It's actually a mix. It's, you know, there's some petite herbs in there, you know, mustard greens, you know, just nice little flavor. Some parsley in there, some great sea salt, which is always a nice addition to any finished dish. You know, we were talking about it earlier, you know, salt really just brings out the flavor and everything. And, you know,
Your emulsion.
which we made a vinaigrette, a tarragon, you know, get some herbs from the garden, you know, and just some oil, some sherry vinegar, nice tart, you know.
Oh, that's great.
And it's just something you could, you know.
Get a little egg white in there?
You know what I like to do for a lot of my vinaigrettes is just like a teaspoon of aioli or mayonnaise you could use at home.
Stevie's got a thing
know?
for egg whites, you know.
I like my egg whites. I used to make drinks with the egg
Yeah,
whites.
yeah.
Smitty remembers I made a margarita with egg whites.
And then, you know, a little bit of chili oil. We infuse our own chilies, you know, taro oil just for a little bit of spice, you know, and, you know, that's it. It's really, really simple. And, you know, like I said, you could do something like that at home. And
Where the
I mean,
forks?
you really, really kind of look like a rock star. But see how easy that was? I mean,
Yeah, that is. So the hardest part is getting the tuna.
yeah,
searing
having
it.
them cut it and sear it. I mean, it's nothing. You get a
And
hot
the
pan,
emulsion, but
a little
still.
bit of oil. But, you know, even this, you could use something. You could use a really good store-bought product. You know, if you don't want to make your own vinaigrettes. I mean, there's so much great stuff out there. You could use balsamic glaze, which you could buy and
Right.
just drizzle on there,
Right.
some extra virgin olive oil.
Nice.
Pick it up.
Pick it up.
That was easy.
There you go. So, 5 people that you would invite to dinner if you had your choice of anybody in the world.
So I'm throwing the dinner party.
You're throwing the dinner party. You're going to invite 5 people.
All right.
More coffee, Joey?
Jesus.
I'm good.
Right?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Always wanted to meet him.
Yeah.
Make me a believer.
Good guy, right?
Martin Luther King.
Oh, nice.
Jimi Hendrix.
Oh,
Need
good
a little
call.
music, bro.
Oh, I love that.
Let's see, who else? Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, maybe the Dalai Lama. The
Oh,
Dalai
yeah.
Lama,
These are good ones.
but the best, Jeff Salloway.
Oh,
Can't have dinner without Sally.
Oh, welcome back. Oh, those are great choices.
You know, it's you know, you said I might ask you a few questions, and then I started thinking about it, and it's tough, you know.
It is a hard one.
I got asked that, and my answer changed. My answer completely changed because I ended up going with family. Joy, what about you?
You know, mine's not that heavy. Mine's not that deep either. You know, for me, a dinner party is about having a good time.
Right.
You know, so I'd love to have someone like Mick Jagger. You know, because he's a rock star. You know, it's always great. And Anthony Bourdain. I think the two of those
I was
guys
gonna put him in
together.
there, actually.
I think the two of those guys together. You know, talking. You know, rock star lifestyle, food. You know, my dad. You know, he's
Right.
no longer with us.
Right.
So you know, I think it'd be fun. I keep it really intimate and just put out some really good food and just put on some good music and you know talk a lot of trash and drink a lot because I know those boys like to party a lot.
Right. Now, have you ever met Bourdain?
I have.
Or what's the
I actually, you know what? I shouldn't say that. I went to his talk over at Guildhall,
Which was
and it was
great,
incredible. It was incredible.
Because sometimes my perception is that he's a schmuck, but is he not a schmuck?
I don't think so.
Right,
I think number one, I think he's a super intelligent guy.
Right.
You know, super.
Right.
You know, I don't know about his cooking skills. Actually, one episode of
When he
his
went
shows, he
way
went
up.
back into his kitchen and he really couldn't even keep up. But you know, I think his shows are just super,
I like
super.
the shows also.
You know, intelligent and smart. You know, just really, really good. Well done.
Interesting. Cool. Now, who would you cite as a main influence in your life and in your career?
You know, believe it or not, I would actually say Jeff. Because you know, and he's not a chef, but you know, his philosophy at Nick&Toni's from day one was that whole slow food farm to table before it even started.
It's true.
There was no, you know, slow food wasn't around. Farm to table really wasn't a big thing that was known. You know, Alice Waters was doing it, but it wasn't something that was really in New York. And he wasn't trying to do anything except for serve really good fresh ingredients at his restaurant. You know?
Well, I think also, I mean, you know, his years spent in Italy, you know, where, you know, farm to table, it's not a movement. It's just the way they eat, you know, and I think he was really enamored with that and saw that it wasn't happening here, and, you know, why shouldn't it happen here? Because there's nothing they were doing that was so revolutionary.
What a lot of people don't know, but I know and remember, is that a lot of the roots of Nick&Toni's came out of the city of Jonathan Waxman's restaurant called Hulo's and also Jams, because that's where Jeff and Tony worked, and Gail Arnold, Bobby Flay for that matter. And Waxman was the guy that brought California cuisine, which was light, which also they were then begin to use at local farms because of all the farms in California.
Right.
So he was influenced by that. But Jeff always had a vision. He had a vision for design. He had a vision for the platterware that you'd use. He had a good view on how to plate a dish. You know, I remember just sitting around with him at table 24 at the end of the night or the beginning of the night, just horsing around, and you know, Paul would bring out a dish, or Gail, he would go, you know, what if we did this? And I was just always impressed with his out of the box thinking, or just creative thinking. What about you, Mark? Who would you count as your influencer?
I would have to say my parents, you know, my father and my mother, you know, they've been pretty influential philosophically, you know, in terms of my morality and philosophically and politically, you know, where I'm at today. They were, I would have to say they were probably the biggest influences.
What about mistakes that you thought you made in life, or bad decisions that turned out well?
That one was easy for me because I quit college after the first year. And, you know, I was probably a mistake, this and that. And in the process of doing that, I sort of realized a lot of things. One, the value of an education, because I ended up going back to school because I was doing, I wouldn't say menial jobs, but they were, you know, driving a truck, working in a lumber yard, you know, and
But those things come in handy later on in life.
yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know, it's not just the education of itself, it's the whole process. But the great thing that came out of it is that I went back to school, and I ended up coming out here, you know, and changing my career. So you know,
Yeah, you
and I
have a
love
whole
what I'm
other thing.
doing.
You got a
Yeah,
great
exactly. So, you know, that was sort of the one for me that stood out.
What about you, Joe?
You know, I thought it was a mistake, but it really wasn't. You know, I had gone to college for accounting. You know, I was cooking, you know, all my life, you know, since I was 14, you know, and I kind of did the accounting thing because it was the right thing to do by my parents. You know, I went 2 years to Baruch and decided, you know, what am I doing here? You know, and I left, but it turned out to be one of the best things because, you know, being in the restaurant business, it's not just about putting beautiful food on the plate anymore. You know, it's getting harder and harder, and it's about, you know, knowing numbers and, you know, running a business. And some of the best things I learned was those 2 years at Baruch College, you know, figuring out how to, you know, manage finances because that's what this game is.
How about you?
Most influential person?
Yeah.
I would say there was a minister at my church in Manhasset, where I ended up going to high school, and he recommended that he wrote a recommendation letter for me to get into Hamilton College, and I got to play football at Hamilton. The most important thing I got out of that education was I made lifelong friends. I was just with 10 of these guys over the weekend, right?
I saw that picture.
I've known these guys since I was 18. That's 40 plus years.
You probably acted like you were 18.
We were actually remarkably mature, and those friendships and that history of time. I mean, there's other people, but I think about that man who also was just very generous of his spirit and of his time with me when I was a 17-year-old guy. You know,
You probably needed a lot of time.
I needed a lot. He needed a lot of help. I still do, Smitty. You know that. You know I do.
That's right.
So we're winding it up. Man, you guys are awesome. What great guests and interesting lives. By the way, Ellie, this is really good coffee.
It actually
It's
is
very, very good. We'd like to know the brand.
But thanks for having us.
Yeah, really.
Oh,
Thanks for having us on the
it's
show,
been a
Steve.
pleasure. You know, this show is a dream come true for me because I love to yak, and I want to thank LTV for having us on, and for you viewers for checking us out. And here's a piece of my art. It's called. It's when you drive over that hump in Montauk and you see the waves out in the water.
know,
It's
well,
called
yeah.
3:42 p.m. and that's what the water looks like. A lot of people see bluefish in there too. So anyway, that's it. Take it easy, but take it, folks. Thanks for joining us.